Hello and welcome to part 2 or episode 2 of our guided playthrough of Satisfactory. In our last episode we went from this Barebones Factory to the humble beginnings of this starter factory, which includes iron production, concrete, copper and solid biofuel. Most of this is efficient and load balanced, and a few things we're going to improve on today, but we actually have a lot more planned than just this. Thanks to this, we do have all of these materials that we will be needing to help advance our factory as we get further into the game. Especially these, which we will be using in a little bit. And given the sole objective of this guided playthrough is to get you guys from the beginning of the game all the way to the end game, because believe it or not, most people stop playing at coal because they find it too complicated. Well, today we're going to go through exactly that. But before we get into the video today and talk about all the new stuff, there is a little bit of housekeeping that I'd like to talk about. First and foremost, I want this series to be reactive to your thoughts and criticisms. It's really important to me that I get the information across to you as easily as possible to help show you the process and get through the whole game. And it does seem that the overwhelming response is people appreciating the first video, but equally there has been a little feedback along with things that we can improve on, and I love that. That's what I want. And from this video moving forwards, a lot of the feedback that we've been given that I agree with will be implemented into these videos. So starting off, we're going to start each segment breaking down the inputs for each layout as well as the outputs. And we're still going to be using the 2-cam system, allowing you to see what we're doing from a bird's eye view to help clarify everything, but also from the ground, so you can understand how we go about doing all these little nifty things that perhaps you didn't know beforehand. At the end of each segment, we'll also take a freeze frame or a frame like this, and you'll be able to pause the video and actually check out how we've organized everything. This may get a little bit more complicated in larger factories, but hopefully we can make it work. And I'm also going to start each video with a breakdown as to the timestamps that are coming up. And please remember to use the timestamps if you do find that the information is a little bit too basic for you, though you may miss some of the various tips and tricks that I'll be showing off throughout the segment. And after hearing your thoughts, we will be starting off with going over the biomass burner setup that we covered in the last episode. Now, once we've done that, we are going to cover what's a starter factory and what should it produce, then the space elevator, automating coal power, steel production, early exploration, Caterium research, when to use the tractor, awesome sinks, and finally a little bit more basic decoration, so hopefully your save doesn't look just like this. Also, take all of the information that I'm giving you with a pinch of salt. This is for you to take and use. It's more a selection of tools. We have layouts for you to follow, but at the same time, you can go and do your own thing as well. Do not feel that you need to follow this to the T unless you absolutely want to. Anyway, let's get to it. So here we are with last week's biomass burner setup. I'm hoping that this top-down view will help explain how this works, but we do have 5 lines of 3 biomass burners. Each line has 1 splitter, which splits equally between the 3 biomass burners. So any item that's going into that line will be split equally. Each arm or leg is equally balanced between the 3 burners. We then have to equally balance them between the 4 other arms. The way that we've done that is by using a load balancer. Now, before I go ahead and show you how to do a load balancer, I wanted to give you an example of a manifold versus a load balancer. On the left hand side though, we have a manifold that is splitting to 5 lines, and on the right we have a load balancer that splits to 5 lines. Both in the long term are equally as efficient. It's just in certain circumstances you may find it more beneficial to have a load balancer over a manifold. The manifolds tend to be more compact, and the load balancers, as we've mentioned, perfectly distribute the resources. So if we very quickly set this up, both containers here have 50 iron plates in them. So we should find that between 5 lines, each line should have 10 iron plates on them. You'd think that would be the same for the manifold, given they're both as efficient as each other, but that isn't the case, as you'll see here. With the manifold, the first line is prioritized, which means it receives the most amount of resources. And as the resources follow down the line, less and less resources get through. The way this works efficiently, though, is by filling up the buffer of the first line so that excess resources can go to the second one and to the third one and so forth. But with the load balancer on the right, everything is equally distributed from the get-go. Now we're going to speed this up a little bit just so that you can see the results. I should also mention on the load balancer, we have 5 lines, but the second splitter in the lower right-hand corner is actually splitting a 6th line to another splitter, which is distributing it between the first splitter in the top and the bottom splitter in the bottom right. The reason that it's doing that is for lines where you're running at full capacity, you may have some throughput issues, but you don't need to worry about it in this circumstance. And here you can quite clearly see how the first splitter in the manifold is prioritized versus the second one, and thus the third one and the fourth one, whereas the load balancer distributes everything evenly. And this is why we've gone with the load balancer here rather than the manifold. If we have the manifold, what may happen is that the first few biomass burners receive all of, or the majority of the fuel, which means that you're not getting the full capacity that the grid can provide because the last few burners in each of the lines may not have fuel. So let's go over this layout. By checking on a biomass burner, we can click on this little fuel icon and it will tell us the burn rate of our solid biofuel, which is 4 per minute. And we have, at the moment at least, only Mark 1 conveyors available. Mark 1 conveyors allow a throughput of only 60 items. So we know that with a max capacity of 60, if we divide that by 4, we can run 15 biomass burners along this network. This actually works really well because we can produce up to 60 solid biofuel per minute. This means that one of these constructors, if it's running at full efficiency, can provide for all of these. Really, this section doesn't need to be efficient. As long as it's running and we're receiving 60 per minute, we know that these biomass burners will be running constantly. And this should be enough to get us through to coal, which we'll talk about shortly. But first, let's build this setup. For that, I need to remove all of this really quickly. So we'll be right back. Now, the first thing that we need to do is set up a single leg. We'll do this in first person so that you can see how we've done it. And then we will show the rest from above. So our first leg is done by placing 3 biomass burners next to one another. Now in front of the middle biomass burner, we're going to take a splitter, and that's going to be facing into the biomass burner, and we can make sure that it's slightly separate from the burner. You don't have to place it inside. From here, we're going to connect it with a Mark 1 conveyor, and then we're going to run this conveyor line just to the beginning of the foundation. Next, we need to grab our power pole or power cable and connect it to a power pole. And I'm going to place mine just in line with the end biomass burner. We can then connect these up, and this is allowing any resource that is run along here to distribute perfectly or evenly between these 3 biomass burners. Now we're going to head up to our man or woman above us so that she can, or they can see us repeating this. So we're going to do this now a further 4 times. And there we are. Now that we have our 5 legs or arms, we can set up the balancer. And to do that, I'm going to do it slightly different this time. I'm going to leave it on one level to make it easier for you to understand. So the first thing that we're going to do is grab our splitters, and we're going to place this down, and we're going to split between 5 from a single input. Now to do this, we have to split 5 from 3 outputs. Now you cannot split 3 outputs between 5, so we know that we need at least 2 splitters. So we're going to place 1 just in line with the middle section of biomass burners here, so we can use each of these. So each arm is going to receive resources from one of the splitters outputs, and then we'll place another one just in front of the 4th line of biomass burners, and we're going to connect this up. Now at this point, if we were to connect these up, we would be splitting one line between 5 outputs, but because a splitter distributes equally from all of its outputs, we'd have 3 items being sent in one direction and 3 to another, and the one with only 2 outputs will receive more resources because of that. So what we will need to do is make use of this output as well, because that way all 3 items sent to there will be used and all 3 here will be used. And the way that we use this is we will add another splitter, and we will split the extra resource between this leg, or this section I should say, and that section. So we are going to push this back a little bit. We're going to do this by building a merger directly behind, or I guess you could say in front of the splitter that's feeding these. And the first output from the splitter that we've just placed will go back into this section. The second output will have to head over in this direction. And we're going to do that by placing a merger in front of the splitter, and we're going to connect one of the merger's inputs with this splitter's output. So now, if we were to split evenly between these two, the resources will be shared and split equally, but we still need to add the initial splitter. So I'm going to place that here, and hopefully that will give us enough room to distribute all of our solid biofuel. And this is the moment of truth. We're going to leave it a few moments. Hopefully you found this easier to follow. We will leave it on this shot so that you can see from above how everything is running, and then we will move on to the next section. But at this point, you should be able to connect your power up to your factory. And given a few moments, once we've received enough solid fuel inside all of our generators, or the majority of them, we'll be able to flick the switch and turn it all back on. Now we can see that there are yellow lights coming on. The yellow lights show that they are ready to be turned on in this case. Now currently, it seems that all, or at least the vast majority of these biomass burners are yellow. So we can go to here and we can turn them on. Now, if there's a particularly high amount of power consumption, we may have to separate the circuit by deleting this and turn the biomass burners on all at once before turning the rest of the factory on. But with that out of the way, let's move on to the next segment. Okay, so now that we have the factory up and running again, we're going to grab a load of resources and we're going to unlock everything left in the last 2 tiers, or the first 2 tiers even. Probably gonna need a little bit more concrete and probably some more wire as well. So let's head up there, and now that we're up here, we can delete our hub without any issue, but first of all, let's unlock some of these. We can go with the jump pads, the resource sync bonus program, or the logistics Mark II. We're going to go with the logistics Mark II simply because we have a load of belts that we need to upgrade, which I forgot about at the end of last episode. So let's send that off and we'll delete this. And we're just going to head back down to the very bottom where our factory is. And do not worry about falling from a high height. You should, providing you have full health, always have a tiny sliver left over if you do jump down. So just don't get attacked by a creature immediately after. From here, we're going to place our hub. And as you can see, we've still got up here 5 minutes left on our pod. And then we can unlock these. So now that we have the Mark II belts, you'll notice that we can transport up to 120 resources per minute. This is increasing our throughput, which is really beneficial because it means we can get more resources out in a single line, such as on this belt here. Unfortunately, we can only send 60 screws in per minute, which is why this isn't running at 100% capacity. So instead, what we're going to do is middle click the belt so that we have the belt or conveyor belt 1 here available for us. And from here, we're going to press or hold E. You can do just click it, or you can hold it, and we're going to select the Mark II conveyor. We're just going to place that over the top and upgrade our belt. Now we should see this filling faster, which is great because it means that this will run at 100% clock speed. The next thing that we can upgrade is actually our biomass burner setup. If you remember rightly, we had, I think it's these, they run at 120 biomass per minute. They do, and we can only pass through 60 per minute. So we're going to upgrade this to a Mark II, the same with this one. And these should now, providing that their outputs aren't full, be running at 100% clock speed. Over here we have 120 leaves per minute entering, so we could do with upgrading both of these lines. Looking over the factory, everything is now efficient, so we're going to just drop down to the hub and unlock the next milestone as soon as the drone arrives. Perfect timing. And now we can send this one off, which is going to take another 5 minutes to go through, but this is really interesting. We're just going to do a little example for you, and what the Awesome Shop allows us to do is exchange Fix-It coupons, you can see the icon here, in return for special things such as the boombox, the factory cart, or, as I prefer using it, for various management additions such as the conveyor lift floor holes, which we mentioned briefly last episode, the wall power outlets. The customizer allows us to change or give us finishes to use in our factory, different materials, foundations, walls, including glass ones, and many more items which can level up your design. However, in order to get these Fix-It coupons, we need to sink resources in the Awesome Sink. Now, initially, the Awesome Sink will only require a few coupon points to return a Fix-It coupon. So we're putting in one of the drones, and that's provided us with 56 points towards a coupon. If we were to put in, let's say, 30 or 29 reinforced iron plates, this will go up quicker. The amount of points that are returned from an item are dependent on how advanced or difficult the item is to produce, generally speaking. There's also DNA points. We'll talk about that later though when it comes to using the Awesome Sink. But for now, you can see we have 4 coupons available, which if we want can be printed out, and we can return these, well, we can use these to unlock anything we want here. With that out of the way, we've got a 1 minute and 50 seconds left, and I'll keep my coupons in there. So for the time being, we're just going to, well, we're not going to wait, we're going to do something useful. I'm going to chop the wood down here so that we have a few more resources for our biomass burners. Now at this point, we have unlocked everything available to us at this stage in the game from the hub. Now there are other things that we can do. We can unlock new research, or we could unlock the next space elevator phase, which we'll talk about shortly. But before we do that, let's have a look at the jump pad. Now the jump pad allows us to quickly launch ourselves in a given direction. So for example here, we can place this down. We can use the mouse wheel to dictate the direction of travel, and we have the blue arrows to dictate where it is that we would be going. Personally, I don't tend to use this, but it might be something that you want to use within your factory. Now we know it's ready when it goes green, and we can just jump on, and you can see we've landed all the way over here. So the next thing that we can do is unlock the space elevator phase. But before we do that, we had a really interesting question, which I haven't really covered, which is what is a starter factory, and more importantly, what should it produce? For me, the starter factory is where you're really beginning to automate everything. It doesn't need to be efficient, but you are producing power, and from that, you're able to automate the very basics. So you're talking iron plates, our screws, our reinforced iron plates, your rotors, perhaps your smart plating as well, your iron rods, concrete, which you can see over here, and then we also have our cable, wire, and our copper sheets. On top of this, I would also recommend basic Caterium items such as quick wire and AI limiters, which we'll be getting onto today. Your basic steel, so steel beams, steel pipes, and your encased industrial beams. And I'd even go as far as to say your modular frames as well. And perhaps, if you really want to push the boat out, your stators and motors, as well as your quartz crystal and silica. Now the reason for them is I use all of those resources when building larger factories, and we want to get to a point where we're able to scale our factories, which generally speaking requires Mark IV logistics, as that has higher throughput. You also want to have trains running so that you can bring extra resources in. And that is why I would say the starter factory just produces the bare minimum. It doesn't even need to be efficient, but you're producing what you need in order to scale up your factory. So now that we know what a starter factory is to me and what should be produced in it, let's get to the next level. For this, we are going to need to build the space elevator. That's going to require 1,500 wire, 400 rods, 250 plates, and 500 concrete. But if you're running around trying to get the resources, do bear in mind you can press this plus button to add to your to-do list. This is actually a really good opportunity to talk about the to-do list as well. You can edit this, you can put in private notes, hello world, and this will be available for you to see. And then we have public notes, which is for anyone in your save at the moment. We need, I don't know, 100 oscillators. So we can close that by clicking off it, and you can see we now have that list to the right of us, as well as the required resources. On top of this, for your first space elevator tier, we are going to need to grab 50 smart plating, which if you followed our previous episode, you'll see that you should have plenty in storage. Next, we're going to build it. Also, I should mention, if you need to go back to this list, you can just press tab to open the inventory screen, and then to your right you can bring your mouse and click on this gradient to edit this list. Also, there are tips and tricks to using them, so commands here. If you want your text to be bold, just enter hello. I think it also said to then use a breakout afterwards. How are you? You can also add bullet points and so much more. So play around with that until your heart's content. Once you're done, you can clear the list as well. And we're going to just place our space elevator anywhere. This is big. This is the biggest item in the game, and we can place it anywhere we want. Just here for the time being will do. Don't worry, we will delete it later and we can rebuild it at our pleasure. This is a beautiful animation, and it's going to connect to the space elevator up there. Believe it or not, looks a little bit off. I think it's moving over. I don't know if that's the space elevator moving over or if it's this thing. I think they're kind of merging together, but they will centralize. Anyway, beautiful animation. Enjoy it. Look at that. And now we can jump down and unlock the next phase. Now in Satisfactory, your hub tiers are locked behind space elevator phases. So this is what we are about to build. And to do that, we need to have 50 smart plating. Thankfully, we already have that. So we're going to load that in. And then from here, we can load this. And then Ada's going to show us a little message about what's coming in this tier.
Welcome to the Project Assembly Pioneer
Here we
Progress
go.
Presentation. Congratulations, the Phase 1 project part shipment is now ready for delivery. On delivery, Phase 1 will be completed and the distribution platform will be constructed. After completion of Phase 1, the technologies of Tiers 3 and 4 will become available in the hub. Highlights are automated power, steel production, personnel transportation.
We'll cover this
and many more.
today.
Completing Phase 2 of project assembly is your next main objective. New project parts will need to be produced and delivered to the space elevator as you have done previously. Continue to construct, automate, explore and exploit.
These are the new phase parts, or these two. We'll cover that probably in the next episode as well. So we can now send this off, and once you do make sure to check out the animation. After all, we are going to build the next project assembly station. And with it being dark, we're going to wait until a little bit later to continue the guide. So we can actually go into unlocking the next hub tier while it's dark though. Right, with that done, let's head to our hub. Returning back to here, you'll notice we now have access to Tier 3 and Tier 4. We're going to cover coal power, vehicular transport in a little bit, and basic steel production straight after coal power. And we might as well, while we're here, unlock the Xeno Basher as well, which is going to be really useful for when we're exploring. All right, let's send off coal power. We're going to cover coal power shortly once it's a little bit brighter. But for the time being, if you remember rightly, we have our Barebones Factory up here. At this point, because we're producing everything and it's all being stored, we don't need this anymore. So I'm going to spend the nighttime hours just deleting all of this and clearing everything away. I recommend you do the same. And there we are. So everything is deleted and we are now ready to look at our coal powered generators. This is a fantastic point in the game. This is where automation really opens up to you because you can fully automate your power, allowing you to just leave your factory to do its own thing. But for this, we are going to need to find coal. Thankfully, upon researching coal power, you should be able to scan for it by holding down V and then hovering the reticle over coal and releasing. Thankfully, I know that in the top northwestern coast, we have 4 normal, actually I think it's 2 normal and 2 impure nodes of coal, which is fantastic for getting our basic factory up and running. For those of you who are wondering what the coordinates were for this factory, you can see in the top right hand corner right now, it's minus 2,631 by minus 1,033. So this area here is going to be our first and foremost coal power plant, and we're also going to set up our steel here. So first things first, we're going to need to build out a little first things first, we're going to have to deal with the hostiles. So for this, we have our first alpha. Thinking about that, I'd prefer to do this with the Xeno Basher. So let's head back and unlock the Xeno Basher in the hub. Normally I'm not too bothered about using the Xeno Zapper, but when it comes to an alpha, they can do a lot of damage, and given this is a guide for newer players, it's probably best that we give you the best tools for the job. So we're going to go with the Xeno Basher in Tier 3. Oh, and we triggered the smash Easter egg there. So here we are in the equipment workshop now. We can unlock the Xeno Basher. Unfortunately, it requires 5 modular frames to be built and 2 Xeno Zappers. The Xeno Zappers isn't really an issue but the modular frames might be. There is always a time and a place for handcrafting, just don't rely on it too much. And here we are with the Xeno Basher. We can equip it from our inventory, and we've also got an extra slot here as well to use for our equipment. When you're about to go into combat, I know we're on retaliation mode, but I always recommend having some food on you so that you can heal up, or if you need to in an emergency, you can quickly scoff some berries or nuts so that you can heal yourself before they get a really nasty bash on you. Now, these are quite easy. I think it's only 3 bashes. Yeah, there you go. Make sure to grab their remains. And thankfully, retaliation mode only works against the creature that you have just triggered. It doesn't trigger all of them. Now, this alpha has 2 attacks. In fact, it may have 3. There's one really big shot, which will do about half of your health as damage. And then it has multiple smaller ones. So I highly recommend just trying to do as much damage as possible. Oh, normally it's a bit harder than that. In a short space of time. Like, just keep pushing through unless you're taking a lot of damage, in which case you might want to get away. This here is a Mercer Sphere, and it's really important in the game. We're going to grab that now, but we'll talk about it more later. It's going to trigger some vocal storytelling scripts.
The astrobiologist Dr. D.M. Mercer was the first to recognize the presence and probable nature of these alien artifacts. These chain-melted state spheres are named in his honor. Each sphere emits a unique signal. Research it in the MAM to establish locally appropriate classification and application.
Fantastic. By the way, if you want to holster your weapon or item, you can just press H when you've got it equipped. You can also re-equip it by pressing H as you see fit. At this point, we are ready for our coal generators. This is a really important milestone when it comes to Satisfactory because it's the first step into automating everything. Now, for this build, we are going to be using 120 coal per minute. That is 2 normal nodes, or a normal node with a Mark II miner, or a normal node of coal with a Mark I miner and overclock to 200%, which we'll talk about shortly. Now, for this, we are going to need a total of 190 reinforced iron plates, 110 rotors, 240 cable, as well as 60 copper sheets. Although I do recommend bringing at least 2 stacks of copper sheets because you will need copper sheets for the pipes as well. You're also going to need some iron plates and some concrete to build the foundations, which we will start off with now. So we'll grab our 2-meter foundation. We're going to keep this close to the ground because we do not want to have to deal with head lift this early on in the game. We'll talk about that at a later stage. So the first thing that you want to do is hold control so that we snap our foundation to the world grid, and then we're going to go across, I think, 10, yeah, let's do 10 foundations to start off with, and we're going to do a 5 deep grid because I feel the extra space will be quite useful. Now, for this build, we're going to start off with placing our coal generators. So we're going to place the first one just at the end. I'm doing it this end because we've got a fun guy here, and I don't know where the coal generators are going to end and where the pipes will begin, but if we start off this end, we should have enough room for our water pipes. So we can add our coal generator here, maybe a foundation in, like so. And then we're going to hold control and we're going to place this 7 times more. So that's 4, 5, 6, and we need a total of 8. 7. Okay, and we need 1 more column. The next thing to do is to grab your Mark I elevators, or conveyor elevators, and we're going to just snap them to the inputs. We're going to try and keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to have the coal come in from this side over here, and we're going to start off with placing a conveyor splitter heading straight towards the coal generator, and then the next ones are going to be facing the left. For this, we are going to be using the manifold method because once it's up and running, it won't shut off unless we surpass the amount of power being provided. I should also mention you're going to need Mark II belts for this. So the last 4 generators can be on a Mark I belt because they each take 15 coal per minute. 15 times 4 is 60. But anything before that will require a Mark II belt because we have a max throughput of 120 coal. Okay, so now that you've got your coal generators ready, the next thing that we need to do is to grab the coal, which is going to be all the way over there. So I will be right back, and I guess you can see it from the top down view. And we are back. I have connected the 2 normal nodes temporarily to the line so that we have 120 coal going along the manifold here. And I have made sure that it's a Mark II line all the way along. The next thing that we need to do is to jump down and set up our water extractors. So for this, we are going to run this line slightly further along, and the reason for this, if we grab a water extractor, you'll see that this water is not deep enough for this, so we actually need to go a little bit further out to about here. So let's extend this just a touch more, and then we will add, in fact, let's start off with adding a pipe junction, and from here we will grab our water extractor, and we can hold control to snap it to the junction that we have here. So we're going to just push this slightly further back because it may have an issue connecting. From here, grab your pipeline. So we're holding E whilst we have the junction open, and you can see that the associated buildings include the pipeline. And we can just bring this across like so. Now there are different types of pipeline style that we can use. I tend to go with horizontal to vertical. What this allows is for junctions that are higher up, it creates a 90-degree horizontal to vertical corner. However, this isn't horizontal only like the straight lines with the conveyors, so you'll have to do them yourself. You can also play around with different types. Auto 2D, noodle all have different looks and may fit when there's an illegal placement for other types. So for this, let's just go with the noodle, and then we're going to hold control and we're going to place 2 more water extractors next to one another. Obviously here we can see that we need to expand this a little more, and then from here we can jump across, and we're going to add 2 more junctions in line like so to our junction over there. Now with the coal generators, we have to have 360 water, which is why we have 3 extractors. Each one of these, you can see here, can produce 120 water per minute. There is one issue with this, and that is our pipes. So our pipes, the Mark I pipe variant, there are 2 in the game, have a capacity of 300. So if we were to connect all of these up and run this all the way down to our coal generator setup, which I'm going to do. So we'll just use this as an example, and then we'll run it to here. So if we were now to have a line feeding all of our coal generators, this pipeline will not be able to provide the coal generators the 360 water that they need. And we know that it's 360 because each one consumes 45 water per minute. 45 times 8 is 360. I should also mention, I don't think I covered the coal. You can see that it uses 15 coal per minute, which is why 15 times 8 equals 120, and why we'll have to connect 2 normal nodes to that 1 conveyor. Sorry, I should have explained that earlier on. But with the 360 water, what we can do is instead of try and squeeze it just in 1 segment of the pipe, we can split the pipe into 2. So if we go to the opposite end, we can have half of the water go down this section and half down this section. I should also mention, if you're looking to do right angles with your pipes, there's a really simple tip. To make this clear, I'm going to run another line just behind our coal generators with the water from this pipe. And to do the 90-degree corner, you just need to place a pipe support 2 spaces in front and then 2 to the side. So if we place it here, we should be able to connect them. Some modes may not allow you to do that. Let's check. So if we go to horizontal vertical, you see that's listed as an illegal placement. However, if we go across to auto 2D or even noodle, it does allow it. We're going to run this all the way across the back of our coal generators now. And we'll run another line of foundations just along here. The reason that I'm doing this, you don't need to, it's just going to be cleaner. And we're going to run this all the way down to about here. Now I've placed it into nudge mode by pressing H. We can still nudge this into the right position. So we know that this is a position and this one. So if we want, we can have the pipe run down here at a right angle, which is what we want. From here, we need to place junctions, and we can grab these by grabbing our pipeline and then holding E and grabbing the junctions. We want to place these in line with our pipeline and also the pipeline input. So I'm going to just run across and do that now. Like so. And all we need to do at this point is connect these up. And there we go. This is pretty much the complete coal generator setup. We just need to connect power poles to each of these, so we'll go behind and quickly do that. What we can do at this point, once we've connected the coal generators, the extractors and the miners to the same grid, we can choose to either turn the facility on using the biomass burners back at base, the grid that we have there, which we will probably do in this example. Or the other option is that we can just place some bio burners, just enough to get this facility up and running, which is more ideal if the facility is further away. I'm going to place the power pole in between these two pipes, and we're going to run them all the way up to the midsection. And from here, we can just connect these up. So to connect this to the main grid, we're just going to have to run a power line all the way back to our base and connect it to a power joint. It looks like we have a free slot over here. And we're just going to very quickly check the power pole. You can see that our max consumption has gone up, and along with production, so obviously the biomass burners are kicking in to provide for the amount of power that's needed to start this up. Immediately we can see that our water extractors are on because the indicators are showing that there's water in the pipes. And we can also see, if we look over here, that we have coal coming from the first miner and then over on the second one as well. So this is going to take a few minutes to warm up. What you can do to help kickstart this facility is by priming the generators with coal. And all that means is we're going to fill the buffers up manually so that there isn't the waiting time for the resources. So if we hover the delete tool, we can see that the first generator's buffer is filled. Our second one isn't quite, which means it's hogging all of the resources. So we can prime it by entering this screen and moving over a stack of coal so this fills up. Once this fills up, this buffer or this elevator will stop bringing resources down. And you can see that the other lines are starting to receive those resources now. So by priming the buffers, we can actually increase the startup time for our generators. So now that we have our coal power up and running, it shouldn't cut out anymore. Let's just check for good luck. Yeah. And with that connected to our factory, we can see that we now have a capacity of 1050 megawatts, which means if we use more than 600 megawatts, our biomass burners are going to start kicking in. We don't need to delete them, just leave them there for the time being, just to give us that emergency overhead. We also have a max consumption of 314, so we have 286 megawatts available to utilize in our factory before we need to consider increasing. Oh, what's happened? So presumably that was an issue with the... Oh, here we go. So the issue here is that I didn't connect this last segment, and this was actually the perfect example of how you cannot fit enough water in a single pipe. And I definitely planned to do that. And once this is connected, we're going to have to give it a little while for the water to flow in. But it should distribute 50-50 across the two pipes. So you can see everything has smoothed out, and we can see that the two pipes looping around perfectly serve these 8 generators. Fantastic. Well, with that out the way and our factory now running from coal power, we can start looking into steel. To unlock steel power, you'll need to go to basic steel production, and we're not currently producing the modular frames. We'll probably do that in the next episode when we're setting up our versatile framework. So we're going to handcraft these for the time being. All right, let's unlock that steel production. Now that we've unlocked steel, we have access to the foundries, and you can see we are going to need some more modular frames. So I recommend for this particular build that you have 20 modular frames produced, and then we're going to head back up to the area in which we just were with the coal. And we are going to do a very basic steel facility, which is going to require 90 iron ore and 90 coal per minute. And I've changed my mind. We are going to use the 2 impure nodes, and we're going to overclock one of them a little later rather than adjust the miners for the coal generators. We're going to start off by taking our foundations out, and we're going to go, I think, 5 foundations down, and we can do probably just 4 foundations. So the first thing that you need to do is grab your foundry. We're going to place this over the center of the second foundation. We're going to do the same midway through the third and fourth one as well. We can then set these to steel ingots. And this is a very, very basic steel factory. Now, if we grab ourselves a constructor, we can place this down, and looking at the recipes, we have the steel beam, which requires 60 steel ingots per minute, and the steel pipe that requires 30. This works really well because we have 2 foundries that add up to 90 steel ingots being outputted per minute, and we can have 2 constructors that require 90 steel ingots per minute. So I'm going to place the first constructor, forget that one over there, about a foundation's width apart from the foundry, and then we're going to hold control for the second one, and we're going to place it so that the inputs and outputs are aligned and the constructors are also in the same line as one another. From here, we need to split 15 of these ingots and merge them with this foundry. So we're going to add a splitter, and we're going to add a merger in front. Now I've done a little boo-boo. It's a little too close. So we're just going to push that back. We're going to connect the foundry to the splitter, and then we're going to have 2 of the splitter's outputs, the center one and also the left, merging into the merger and then heading into the constructor. This gives us 30 steel ingots going into this constructor, and then we have 15 that will be going out this line and merging in front of the foundry, with the 15 combining with the 45 from this foundry, heading into this constructor, which is taking 60 steel ingots to turn them into steel beams. From here, we can power them, and we also need to sort out storage. So all I'm going to do is add 2 storage containers just in line with the foundries. And so here we have 2 really clean lines. The next thing that we need to do is connect these to the grid. So we're keeping 1 power pole to 1 constructor at the moment, same with the foundries, just because it helps keep everything clean. The next thing that we need to do is bring in the resources, but before we do that, let's set up our manifolds. So we're going to add a splitter directly in front of the first input, and we're going to do the same on the second foundry as well. Because this is receiving 90 iron ore per minute, we're going to have to make sure that it's a Mark II or 90 coal, whichever we choose. And the same goes for the next section. We're going to use an elevator, just like we did with the coal gens behind us. We're going to place the splitter just in front. Thinking about it, I should have probably have done the power poles after, because these are going to... actually, you know what? I don't think they do. So we have our Mark II line there, and we have our Mark II line here. Next, we need to connect the coal up. So let's just grab a Mark I miner here. And next we need to bring the coal from this node as well. So this is going to be 3 high. And we're going to connect these up. This just means that it's going to be easier to walk around this facility. But we can also bring this straight up into here. And it does mean that if we run the coal from the second node along here, we'll be able to lift it up also and feed it directly into the merger that we've just placed. Now we do need to, I need to stress, we do need to overclock these miners, or at least one of them. And we're going to connect it typical, we're out of iron. Right, I'm going to go back to base and then we will connect this up. Okay, and we are back. From here, we're going to connect our conveyor belt to our merger. And the next thing we need to do is to get the iron down here. And I thought what we'd do is bring the iron from this side. And given we have the iron from the plateau across from here, that we would maybe use an elevator to bring it all the way down. And I'm going to show you a little trick, I think, once we've set that up. So let's head over to the iron node. It's a pure one, so we've got more than enough ore that will be generated from that. We just need to use a Mark II belt to belt it all the way back to our factory. Placing it the opposite way around works pretty well. We're going to add a foundation, and we can just bring this up to here. So it's now on the grid, and from here we can bring this up via elevator and then bring it up to here. At this point we can run a foundation line all the way across to our facility. And don't worry, if you don't like the fauna in the way, we can just get rid of that with our trusty chainsaw that we unlocked in the last episode. And here we are with our conveyor bus. Do note, this is a power slug. We're going to be collecting these later on our little adventure when we cover exploring briefly, so we can grab them. But first, let's get this setup up and running. So we have our bus, and it's running hopefully in line with this foundation. So what we will do, we'll actually delete this. It was a good point of reference, but we know it's here. And then from here, we're going to try and make it so that we are on top of that foundation. I think we've got to place one more. And the plan will be to bring our line down the center line all the way across to our platform. And then it is here that we are going to show you another little trick. So if we grab our conveyor elevators and we give ourselves a bit of room, you'll notice that we can't go any further down than 48 resources. Same with going up. Well, earlier on, we unlocked some Fix-It coupons. So let's head back to the hub really quickly and pick them up. So we can grab them here. I hope we have enough, actually. So let's grab our awesome shop. I'm just gonna place it down here. And from here, if we go across to, is it management? Yeah, management. We have the conveyor lift floor hole. We're gonna grab that. So we add it to cart, and then we're going to buy all. Now that has taken one of our coupons. In doing so, we have now unlocked in the logistics section the conveyor lift floor hole. This is going to be really useful. So let's head back to the platform. Now that we're back here, we can grab our conveyor lift hole and we can place this directly in the center. I mean, we can place this anywhere we want, but it's going to be easier to orientate ourselves to the center of the foundation. We're going to place a conveyor lift head just on the top, and we're going to press R so that we have it receiving resources rather than outputting them. You can then connect our conveyor Mark II, and we can drop down here. This will hurt a little, don't worry. We can get knee replacements. Oh. And from here, we can see our conveyor floor hole. Again, if we drag up, you can see that it goes only up to 48. However, if we place it in the exact spot and then lift it all the way up and hover over the floor hole, you can see that we can go up to 76. Oh, you're joking. We're going to be like 3 short That is so annoying. Anyway, we've been able to take the elevator all the way to the very top in one. Look, a 3 short. I knew it. I will be right back. You may also be wondering, whilst we're heading back, like, what are we going to do with the platform? Because it doesn't look particularly nice. Well, we can improve that by making it a little more structured. We do have foundation pieces. Unfortunately, we only have the ramp and the normal foundation unlocked at the moment. But what I would probably do is run a foundation along here to make it look a little bit more chunky. Oh, look, and there's our resources coming down. Nice. And then I would run an inverted ramp all the way down to here just to support it. If I place that there now, we will, once we've unlocked the inverted ramps, I will show you how that looks. Anyway, now that we've got the iron ore all the way down, we can connect this up and this should start turning on. For the time being, this facility will not run efficiently because we do need to add more coal to the factory. At the moment, it's only receiving 60 per minute and it needs 90. But because of the buffer, it should run at least initially at 100% speed, and we can go out and do some exploring now and solve that issue. But as you can see, we have our first steel beam coming through and also our first steel pipes. They're going to be stored away for us and we'll be using them later once we unlock Mark III logistics. But anyway, let's get started with exploration. Exploration in Satisfactory is one of the 2 main pillars, I'd say, of the game. You have the production and automation and building aspect, and then you have the exploration, which allows you to unlock new resources. You'll find things like these Mercer spheres that we can collect, and you should collect them if you come across them. This enemy here is a hatcher. Now, if you come across this in aggressive mode, they will hatch and fly towards you and instantly kill you. Well, instantly damage you like that. However, to stop them spawning, you can just destroy the egg hatcher, like so. But there is a nice little tip to dealing with them. I believe we've got some more over here, so let me just head over there and I'll show you. So with these hatches, if you hold C, you can kind of, and it doesn't matter if you're jumping while you do it or flying if you have the jetpack, but you can sneak up to them and then destroy them without ever triggering them. This also works for the alpha ones. If we head to another one over here. There isn't another one over here. Never mind. Whilst you're exploring, you'll find the Mercer sphere, which we'll head back to shortly. And there are also summer sloops. These are the rarer items in the game that you want to collect. You do want these because they give you powerful bonuses to your factory. If you are exploring, do take some concrete and iron plates with you in the early game, just so that you can build foundations up to where you're going. It just makes exploration so much easier. So as you can see here, we can grab this and it'll probably trigger some kind of script. I'm going to avoid listening to Ada for this, so that you can discover that all on your own. Let's continue exploring now. I'm going to show you various items that you want to collect in the early game. Whilst exploring, you will come across bacon agaric, which is a type of food, pale berries, and also beryl nuts. All of those are edibles and they will heal your health if you eat them. Other things to look out for are power slugs. So you should be able to see some. It's very rare that you can't see any. They're normally on cliffs, glowing. Is that one up there? Yeah. So this is a yellow power slug. There are 3 variants. You have a blue one, a yellow one, and a pink one, or purple. And you'll want to collect them. For now, on this journey, all we want is to find 3 power slugs, 3 blue ones. You'll also come across crash pods like this, which when you go over to them, you can click them, and providing you have the resource or the power in order to unlock them, you'll be able to unlock these and in return grab their hard drive, which will unlock alternative recipes. We're not going to talk too much about alternative recipes in this playthrough. I do recommend checking out my video on alternative recipes if you want to know which ones are best for the early game, but they can be incredibly beneficial. Here is one of the blue slugs that we saw earlier. We'll grab this. And also next to it, we have a placer deposit of quartz. This is one of the 2 resources that we do want to have a look for later on. If your inventory is full for whatever reason, you can open your inventory and delete items. We have some mycelia, which we'll probably research in a little bit. We can also drop items on the floor by dragging them out of our inventory as well. And we're just going to mine this quartz. We also have this resource. I don't recommend mining it, so stay away from it if you come across. This is uranium ore. You won't need that until much later. We are looking for another material, and that's going to be Caterium. Thankfully, I know where Caterium is on the map. There's a node up here, but it will be beneficial to grab whatever Caterium you can find. Let's grab that. And here we have the 3rd slug that we were looking for, and also our Caterium node, which is pure exclamation mark. I don't think it normally has an exclamation mark. So the reason why that had an exclamation mark was because our inventory was full and we couldn't pick enough. That makes sense. You see, we learn something new all the time in this game. It doesn't matter how many hours you have. And now we're going to grab a load of Caterium. So I'm just going to place these down. We're going to let them do their job. So let's grab these. 200 ore should be enough to get started. And now that we've got a nice ramp to get back up there when we need it, we can head back. Oh, I also forgot to mention, while you're exploring, do take resources so that you can build your MAM, because you can do the research while you're here. So we will unlock one of these, but before we do that, let's just very quickly research the hog, the splitter, the power slug, and the Caterium. We have the alien technology and the summer sloop. I'm going to skip over this so that we don't spoil anything for you. And having researched these 2, we now have the ability to unlock the dimensional depot, which is going to be really useful. We'll probably do that in the next episode or the one after that. And we can also look at the power augmenter or the production amplifier. These are going to be a little bit later in the game. You can unlock these earlier in the game via collecting the circuit boards on the computers from crash sites, but I don't think that's necessary for this playthrough. The only thing we have left to find is Sam, and we'll find that later. Next, let's unlock our Caterium. Researching this allows us to now find it using the object scanner, and we can also unlock Caterium ingots, quick wire, and once we've researched Caterium electronics, we'll be able to access the AI limiters. Whilst exploring, it can be really beneficial to have a parachute, and to unlock the parachute, you will have to research fabric, and then it's one of these 2, I believe. On top of giving us bonuses to our factory through the use of new technologies, such as the dimensional depot or the smart splitters, we do also get various other bonuses. So with alien megafauna, we can see here, thankfully, we have the ability to increase our inventory slots, our equipment slots, and we can also unlock different weapons and ways of healing, such as the protein inhaler. I also like to use signs in my factories, which are linked to the quartz tree, so it's very important for me to unlock quartz early on. Now that we've researched all that we have available here, we're going to also scan one of our hard drives. These take 10 minutes to scan, so it takes a fair amount of time. Now that we're back at the base, whilst we wait for the research to unlock, I'm just going to start producing some Caterium ingots. You could set this up in a smelter, but I've got a few minutes to kill. At this point, I have added the MAM here. This is just going to be a permanent fixture. We don't really need to get rid of these now. We've got a minute left on the hard drive, and can we... Oh, of course we can't. We needed a little bit more. So with the Caterium, it requires 3 ore to 1 ingot. So actually we should have brought maybe 300 back with us rather than 200. So my bad. Now we won't touch too much on the hard drives. Just know that alternative recipes are really beneficial. You can also scan multiple hard drives and they will be banked in your hard drive library, which you'll see in a moment. So here we go. We have completed that scan, and in our hard drive library we have the basic iron ingot and the biocoal. Now we can choose one of these to unlock as a recipe to use in our factory. Unfortunately, both of these are basic iron ingot's actually pretty good, but you don't need it at this point in the game. So what we can do is rescan the hard drive. And here we have a bolted frame, and we also have fused wire. So we can choose one of these recipes to unlock in our factory, or what I prefer to do is to leave these hard drives that are researched in our hard drive library, because that reduces the pool of potential recipes to unlock. So we're just going to leave that there, and now we will unlock our power slugs. So the power slug to unlock is just a single blue power slug to start off with, and then from here we can then research scanning of power slugs or overclocking, which is more important. So for us, we need to unlock overclocking, so we are going to have to turn one of our slugs into a power shard. Now I said we needed 3, but given we also have to research a power shard, it's actually 4 blue slugs that you need for this particular setup that we're doing today. From here we can research overclocking, and from here we'll be able to go over to our miner and overclock it. Overclocking exponentially increases the power consumption of a buildable. So if we go here, we have these slots now available to use, and we can place them in here. Just hold shift while you do it, it's the easier way to do it. And you can see that we can increase it by up to 200% with these 2 power shards, bringing us to 60 ore per minute. And we have the 30 at the other miner, meaning we now have 90 on the line. However, this miner is now consuming 12.5 megawatts to run versus at half the speed 5. So it's an extra 7.5 megawatts in order to overclock at 200% clock speed. Anyway, we now have a fully operational, balanced factory line for our steel production. At this point, we can focus on unlocking vehicular transport and also logistics Mark III. I don't really want to go in this stuff too much, as we'll save that for the next episode, but we might as well unlock the logistics Mark III whilst we're here. Now, the reason for unlocking the logistics Mark III is that it's really easy to set up the steel beams, and now that we've done that, we can upgrade our lines to Mark III, which, if we look here, allows the throughput of 270 resources per minute. And this brings another question which a lot of you had the other day, which is, when do you scale up your factories? We're producing a little bit, a lot. Well, I would argue that it's at Mark IV logistics. So the one after this, we have at that point trains available for transporting a lot of resources, but we also have the Mark IV belts that allow us to, I think, transfer 480 items throughout our factory on a single conveyor, which is going to be much more beneficial, as 270 resources really limits you to something like 6 foundries, so it's not really scaling that much. So at the moment it's good to have, but it's not necessary to scale anything for a little while longer. But don't worry, we'll get to that shortly. The next thing that we're going to unlock is the tractor, and personally I rarely use the tractor, I rarely use the truck station. We will do for this playthrough, probably not today, but the reason for using a tractor is to transport resources from areas that are further away. The downside is they require fuel, so for me I tend to only do this where something like coal is available, because further into the game you're not going to be needing to use tractors, you'll use something like trains or drones which use different resources. With the tractor unlocked, we can now use that for transportation. We're not going to use it for our factory, but we will use it to get us over to the Caterium facility much quicker, but we will wait until daytime for that. Now with the tractor we can put fuel in by clicking the little box at the back and use that. We can also use it to craft. So if you want, we could go to our crafting bench, and from here we can produce whatever we need. One of the reasons why using the tractor to get around in the early game is good is that firstly it can kill creatures, but also if you end up going through gas clouds you don't take damage. You also don't trigger enemies, and it's a fair bit quicker as well. But now that we're here, let's first of all mine and very quickly produce some Caterium ingots, and then once we've unlocked the research for that, we'll get started on the next factory. Okay, so we're going to really quickly just do a couple of these ingots, and we can now send off our Caterium quick wire research. And this allows us to unlock quick wire production. And once we have 100, we can unlock the electronics. So I'm going to very quickly unlock all of these. But here we can see we've got 12 Caterium ingots per minute, produce 60 quick wire. So the first thing that I want to do is place my foundations down. So let's make sure they're on the world grid. And then from here, we're going to cover up the Caterium node. And the reason for that is we're going to place our miner directly on that. And it should mean that its output is in line with this height. From here, we will also expand our grid. I'm thinking that probably, let's go out 5 deep with 4 wide. And from here, we can add our smelters. Now, the Caterium node is going to produce 120 per minute. And knowing that it's a ratio of 3 ore to 1 Caterium, so we can see here 45, we can take that 120, divide it by 45, and that will give us 2.6667 smelters. So we're going to place 1 smelter in the middle of a foundation and then 1 either side of that. From here, we're going to add a merger on the output, connect all of these up, and from here, we can work out the perfect ratios. So if we take that and we divide that by 3, we can see that each smelter should be running at 88.889% clock speed in order to run efficiently. So along with overclocking, now that we've unlocked that, we can also underclock, which allows us to have a lot more control as to the production. Now with this, we want to produce, well, we can set it here, the clock speed 88.889, and you'll see that it's consuming 13.333 per minute, which is 2639.99999. So from here we can add a splitter, and we're going to connect these together. And then we just need to connect our miner to our smelters. At this point, we should be producing 40 per minute once it is powered. And I don't know if I copied this. Did I copy and paste this? No. So make sure to copy and paste the recipe. So here we have a 3 smelter setup for Caterium, and we're going to send all of these resources along a bus back to our factory. And we're going to keep it slightly higher so that we don't have to be ducking and weaving between all the terrain. Now normally this is about the distance where I would start using a train to transport resources back to the base. But because we haven't unlocked them yet, we are going to be using this bus line. A bus line just refers to a conveyor that buses, it sends resources, like I guess you could say a public transport bus, all the way back to the facility. Anyway, let's get this all the way back to the factory. And I've just realized that my second account wasn't facing the same direction as the world grid. So I thought I'd quickly just show you the overhead layout here. And here we are, the bus is complete. It's sending the resources back to the factory, and it's actually lining up just next to the copper facility, which we'll be talking about in a moment because we're going to start producing the quick wire and hopefully some AI limiters. At the moment, this is just a sky platform or bus bringing the resources back. We will add some supports to that later on, but for the time being, let's just run the ingots back to here. And this is where we're going to start building the next facility. So I'm going to delete the space elevator. Do not worry too much about that. And we're going to make sure that we have space here to work on the AI limiters. The Caterium's just starting to back up, but we have now unlocked the AI limiters, which means we can get started on the layout. For this next segment, we're going to combine the 40 Caterium ingots, which are on that belt there, and we're going to produce AI limiters with the thanks of the 25 copper sheets from this section here. In fact, we can remove that now. So we've got our 25 copper sheets here, and we are now going to do 100 quick wire, which will go to an assembler for this section, and we're going to produce, I think it's another 100 quick wire, which will just go to our own storage. So starting off, we are going to place another couple of columns of foundations. We're going to run them all the way to the end, and for this we're going to want, I'd say, a minimum of 4 columns. The reason for that is we still have this segment here, which is going to be a walkway in between the two. Okay, so we have our 4 columns here. We're going to now place 4 constructors in a line, and these are in line with the previous ones that we placed prior. We'll have this as a little walkway through. And next we need to split the 40 Caterium ingots into 4 lines. So for this, we're going to grab a splitter, and then we will have 1 in front of the 3rd constructor and 1 in front of the 2nd constructor, and we're just going to split evenly between the 2, and then we're going to use 2 of the outputs on each of the splitters as well to go to the other constructors. Next, we need to set this as quick wire. Now, as you can see, we're consuming 12 per minute to produce 60. We only need 100, so if we underclock 2 to 50, we'll have the perfect amount. This is also 10 Caterium ingots per minute. In front of these 2, we will need to place a merger. This is going to produce the 100 quick wire that we need for our assembler. So from here we will grab a Mark II lift, and we're going to have that facing the copper segment to our right. We're also going to place a merger in front of the other 2. And this is producing the quick wire that we need to send to storage. From here, let's make sure that we have power going to our constructors. Again, we're following the same system as we've done prior and placing them in the edge of the constructors between 2 constructors at a time. So these should be powered and ready to receive the Caterium ingots to become quick wire. Now, I haven't got that many reinforced iron plates, so instead I'm going to use the Mark III belt. We're going to run this across into this column here alongside our wall. So we're going to place our storage for our quick wire just here. With the quick wire sorted, all we need to do now is the AI limiters. For that, we're going to grab an assembler, and we're going to place it in line with the assemblers that we currently have, although that one looks like it's slightly further out. We'll just try our best to get it roughly in the right position. We're going to make sure that the line in is in line with our copper sheets. From here, we'll connect the copper sheet line straight into our assembler, and you can see we need 25 per minute and our 100 quick wire, which we can now grab from here. I'm going to turn this to a Mark III, the same with this one, just because I like seeing everything with the same speed belts. And in straight mode, we can just run that conveyor all the way across our walkway to our assembler here. And there we have it. We have now got our AI limiters ready to go once we connect our Caterium ingots. And just in front of here, I'm going to place this in the center, and then we'll connect this up in straight mode so that it aligns, just because it looks a little bit cleaner this side of the factory. Finally, we're going to close this off, and here we are. The facility is up and running. Now, with that out the way, we do have a new problem. It's not necessarily a bad problem, but you can see a lot of the resources are fully saturated, such as these 3 here. The reason that is because our containers are full. So not a bad problem to have at all. However, the problem with this, looking over our power grid, ooh, look at the straight lines, this is wonderful, is that you can see here our max consumption line is here. And what may happen if our factory switches off, our max consumption may increase, but we won't know about it because half the factory isn't running. And then as soon as we pull resources out of our storage, oh, I don't really want to delete all these. So let's just delete a couple of these. And now if we check that grid, we should see this start to increase. Which it is ever so slightly, but that's because we're almost at our max consumption anyway. So what we're going to do now is make use of the extra resources which we're now not producing. And we're going to do that with the awesome sinks. Now we've already covered how the awesome sinks allow us to sync resources for coupons. But we can now unlock in the MAM the Smart Splitter. Now this will allow us to send excess resources once a container is full to our awesome sink. And having the awesome sink running means that our factory will run constantly at its max consumption rate, which should mean that we won't have any nasty surprises, with the added bonus of having lots of fix-it coupons to use in our facility. So, first thing that I'm going to do is total up all of the lines, and then we're going to work out where we can place our awesome sinks. And in total, there are 281 items per minute that are running to these containers. Now, unfortunately, we only have access to a Mark III conveyor belt, which is 270 items per minute. So if we were to run everything consistently and everything was going to a sink, we'd still have 11 resources from the 281. So that tells us that we need at least 2 awesome sinks in this facility for the time being. So we will place one awesome sink up in the top left, seeing as we have so much space available. And we're going to place another one over here in our copper section. So for this, I am just going to very quickly remove the containers that we've got. We're going to replace them. And next we need to hook up our awesome sinks. Taking that tip that we had from last week, we've placed a pole on the wire. We're going to connect that to our awesome sink. That's ready to go. And we'll do the same on the Caterium section as well. Taking the AI limiters that we have just started producing, we're going to unlock the Smart Splitter. And next we're going to set up an overflow line. To do this, we're going to place a Smart Splitter heading into our storage. We'll then redo this line. So we'll just connect it there and then from here to here. We can then click on the Smart Splitter and we will set the center output to any, which it's defaulted to, and we're going to set our left output to overflow. Now I haven't done this before, so I'm hoping it's going to work, but we're going to place a conveyor elevator facing this direction, and from here I'm hoping to add a conveyor merger. This is going to merge our overflow line and send it all the way over to our awesome sink. We're going to do this for every single line that we have. Also important to know is that once you've set this up, you can copy the settings, you can do the Control-C, and then you can Control-V or go into it and click paste settings so that you do not have to manually change each segment. So if it's a little bit too tight, as you can see here, and it's clipping through, what we can do is nudge this into the right position, such as there. I don't mind a little bit of clipping like this, but I'm not too keen on it cutting over unless it's for an artistic purpose. Just make sure that if you do that, that you connect them together. We're now going to do the rest of these, followed by adding our mergers. I'll set it up so that it's facing back down into our facility, and then from here we'll connect it up, and we're just going to use the straight belt system to send it around, and it should go straight into the sink, as you can see here. And this is now starting to produce items for us, and this will run continuously as long as we have the power to do this and everything is hooked up. Now if you wanted to, we can probably fit the rest of the resources on this line, but it's better for us just to spread the load so that this segment just doesn't look that empty, in my opinion. You can do as you prefer. And once again, we are going to run that straight into our awesome sink, and this should now turn on. So we're going to let this run for a little bit, and then once the lines have all evened out, we will then get started with the decoration. We will probably wait until the next morning there. And here we are, the factory is running with everything going to the awesome sync, and I'm really happy with this. There is no stillness. We do now have 11 coupons, so we're going to use these to unlock some decorational pieces over in the awesome shop so that we can start building. And we're going to focus just for today improving the overall supports of the build for just general decoration, and also the front section here. We want to improve that a little bit as well. We're going to try and keep it simple so that anyone can do this, and we'll improve on this later. So it's not going to be the perfect build as of yet, but let's grab the other coupons. So we have 14 in total, and actually whilst we're here, I'm just going to unlock the other hard drive as well. Now, there are plenty of things that we can unlock. Wall power joints are going to be really important later on. I also really like clean pipelines so that you don't see the undulating pipe as you're running through the factory. But for decorational purposes, signs would be fantastic, but we haven't unlocked the quartz crystals yet, so we'll be doing that in the next episode. As for the customizer options, we only have 14 coupons available, and these are quite expensive. What I would potentially go with is the concrete foundation though, because this means that you're just using concrete to build your foundations rather than iron and concrete. As for the foundations, I did mention we wanted the inverted ramp set, so we will grab that. In the wall section, I would have really liked to unlock the windows. I think we'll probably have to do that in the next episode. We'll focus on quartz and silica, and we could go with the inverted ramped walls and the ramped walls. Between them, I like to use them quite a bit, but we'll leave these for the time being. As for architecture, it's very powerful. I do recommend grabbing the catwalks when you get a chance. There's also roofing. We'll definitely grab the concrete pillars because those are going to be useful alongside beams. These are quite expensive, but well worth it as well. And I don't know, maybe these fences. I do like the look of the fences at the moment. We're not going to purchase any equipment, though a coffee cup is well worth it. And we're not going to purchase parts. It can be viable to purchase parts to help you unlock stuff, but for this, we're going to focus more on the decoration. And there you go, we've got 13. Is there anything else we can spend with our 1? We can get these, so I'll purchase that. The first thing that we're going to do is just improve the supports, as I mentioned previously. I'm going to push this back slightly, and from here we're going to grab our 2-meter one. So we're just going to pull that all the way across. From here, we will add our foundations just in those gaps, and immediately that looks tons better. And then from here, hopefully I haven't blocked the view too much. We're going to start off with just a little bit of detailing from the 1-meter basic wall, and we can run this all the way around the side. We can also do the same on the lower section, and it's just about playing around with the different materials that you have available. Unfortunately, we don't have that much to play around with, but we do have these beams, so that will add a different depth to the outside. And then once you've played around with the depth a little bit, you can play around with the color. So at the moment we're just layering these on top of one another just to give you an idea as to what you can do. And if you really want to play around with this, you can also play around with different materials. So for example, if we go from this bottom section here and we enter the freeform mode, we can run this up alongside the ramp. And then we can grab our pillar, and the pillars are quite useful here because we can snap them to the beams to add a different type of material along the side of the support. We can then repeat this at intermittent intervals, and we can do this further up as well if we wish. So I'm just giving you an idea as to what you can play around with. You don't have to do exactly this. Really, the more you play around with it, the better. Now, what I would do at this point, if I had different materials available, which we don't unfortunately, would be to color these in. Unfortunately, we don't, but what we can do is we can fill it in with these walls. In fact, probably better, rather than just doing this, we can change the swatch for the wall. So if we go with this and we right click the swatch and we click this as standard, anything that we paint now that's standard selection, we will paint with this color. So if we close this and we add our walls, they will now be the gray color. Also, if you press G whilst on a particular buildable, you'll notice that the customizer filter snaps to or changes to basic wall. We can do it for foundations as well. But what this does, if we try to paint, say for example, this wall, and we set the customizer to that, it doesn't matter if we look at other items, it will only paint the walls. Now, I'm going to continue playing around with this for a little bit, and then we're going to get back down and work on the factory. And there we are, our first support. It looks a lot more supported, and I'm quite liking the color scheme, though we'll probably change it for the main factory. Honestly, it's just about playing around and seeing what works for you. At the moment, I'm just trying to frame everything nicely. The problem here is that it's not quite in line. So I'll probably skip this bit and just leave it as it is for now. But the idea of giving a bit more structure and depth to the supports can go a really long way just to add a little bit more spice to your build. Right, I'm going to go across doing the rest of the lower sections, and then once it's day again, we'll do some more recording and show you the front. Overnight, we've continued with the theme of the darker charcoal grey lower wall and then the orange on top. I haven't done much more than that, but go around the whole base. It's a pretty sleek look, but there's nothing particularly special about it. And so we're now going to focus on the exterior architecture. We're going to build the framework, and we'll probably fill it in with extra stuff once we've unlocked it in the next episode. So now that we're at the front, we're going to start with the basic framework, and we're going to look at adding depth to the build. So for this, I am going to just build a little platform to work from. It's going to be really important because we're going to have to jump back and forth for this. And we are going to start off, I think, if we build just slightly inside, we're going to go, what, 5, 6 up. And I'm going to just run this foundation. I'm going to zoop it all the way across the build. And this is kind of going to act as the spine of our facility. And we'll probably partner it with a parallel spine along the other side as well. It's also quite nice having quite a high ceiling when it comes to adding shadows and lighting later, but we're not going to worry about that for today. Now, because this middle section here is kind of our entrance point, let's make sure that we frame this. So for this, we're going to grab our ramps, and we're going to either side run 2 foundation ramps down, and in fact from here we can probably do this all the way along, just every 2 foundation space. When we have something like the concrete material, this is going to look much better. You're just going to have to trust in me for now, but however you want to design this, it really is up to you. This is just something that anyone can pick up and do really easily, so hopefully you can all do this if you're looking for something that's just clean and quick and easy to do. I guess if the top section's the spine, we're kind of creating a rib cage for our factory. And as with any skeleton, you're going to want to add your flesh to this over the top. That's kind of the detail that you're adding. So we're going to run that down. And while we're at it, we're also going to add the inverted ramp as well, just in the center. Next, we're going to follow the very first rib. We're going to bring our 4-meter foundations down 5, and at the moment I really have no idea how this is going to look, but as long as we keep adding on and placing detail to this, should look pretty good in the end. Then whilst we're here, I'm also going to run the inverted ramp all the way across the bottom as well. Okay, How does that look? Okay, I'm pretty happy with this so far. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the materials, so instead I'm going to run the walls all the way along. And then, what should we do here? We're going to grab our painted beam. Let's see how this looks. We're going to go into freeform mode, and we're just going to run it to the bottom of each section. Yeah, we could do that maybe. How would we get this to work? If we place this here, sometimes it's a bit of a puzzle piece. We're just experimenting and trying to get the top section just in line so that we can run this all the way through to here. And then when we remove this, hopefully it'll look quite nice. And then once we've unlocked in the next episode the glass, we can put the window in the center here along with the rooftop. And that should look quite good. We can also add the orange at the bottom here, and we're just framing it all together. I've been a little concerned. I'm liking how it's coming along. However, it looks a bit like a Duracell battery with the orange and the charcoal. So what I've been doing is adding this bright white just along the concrete pieces, like so. And for now, I think it will do. But we will probably change this to a metallic color when we've unlocked them, which will probably happen, if I'm honest, in the next episode. I should probably show you. This is the normal white color. The way that you can get a bright white is by increasing the saturation beyond 1. So, for example, if you want to do bright white, it would be 100. If you want to do pitch black, it would be minus 100. So when we do this, you can see how it's gone to this pitch black rather than this kind of grayish color. We'll fill the section with glass and maybe a roof in the next one. And we'll also try and add some signage as well, just to make it pop a little bit more. I think we'll probably add something like maybe a larger spine just down the center. Oh, actually, I really like that. Yeah, we're gonna keep that. I don't know if we'll use a different color, whether we'll change it to white or if we'll just leave it. And I do want some space above for glass ceilings, so we'll try and unlock them in the next one as well. But we'll play around with that more in the next one. For now, I'm just going to complete this. We'll probably repeat this on the other side as well, and then we'll call it a day. I'm pretty happy with how it's coming along. So we've expanded on what I've just built on the front, and I've then added kind of the backbone of the facility on top. So we're looking at the rooftop at the moment. I'm not very good at doing rooftops. I never have been, and I dislike that we don't have that many items to play around with. But I'm planning on repeating what we've done on the left-hand side on the right. So it's going to run straight up into the bus as well. And then in the larger triangles, we're going to have space for windows, and then in the smaller ones we're going to place the lighting in there. So we'll cover that up, but we don't need to do that just yet. The other thing with the materials, I'm not too happy with it because it has this weird kind of square grid look. Once we unlock something like concrete, we can replace that and it's going to look much better. And we can also, actually, we can probably do that now thinking about it. Yeah, looking back at the awesome sync, all syncs final, no refunds or exchanges. We now have 18 coupons. So it didn't even occur to me while I was like building this to check that. But we can now unlock the concrete, which I will now do. So what are we going to buy? First of all, most definitely in the customizer, we will unlock the concrete foundations. Oh, we could unlock one of these. I'm tempted to go with the copper paint finish because that has looked amazing in the past. Yeah, let's do it. Why not? Let's treat ourselves. We'll save the 10 coupons for later. And the reason for that is I don't want to get too carried away in our first decoration build. I could spend hours on this and still not be happy with it. So we're going to change the materials of the top section, which is going to require a lot more concrete. And then we're going to repeat this on the other side and we'll be done for today. And here we are. I'm pretty happy with this as the skeleton for our build. But we've got a nice contrast in color. I may actually turn the top section along these back to the foundations and have them match the rib cage. We've also got space for big glass roof windows, which we'll unlock in the next one hopefully, and same with either side, space for windows and the ramped window roofs, and that's going to bring in a lot of natural light. And then we've got the smaller segments either side, which are going to be dedicated to using signs to create light. Actually, thinking about it, we'd need oscillators, so that might not be the next one. But the great thing about this game is that you can always build on and add new things as you unlock more stuff, which is exactly what we will be doing in this. It's going to be a much more natural playthrough where as we unlock things, we'll add more. And we're going to have to play around with the walkways too in the next one. But I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, please hit the thumbs up and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Special thanks does go to all of our supporters on Patreon, most notably our Lunarclipse Patrons, Five Less the Calamity, Ben and Star, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Shlom. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.